forgive me for this trap shit. Sergeant Smack making backflip. Telly Hank did with the action. With the Vato speaking Spanish. Frank Matthews, how I vanish. Poof. Came back like I'm King Tut. Gold BBS is on a beamer. When Fat Cat was 10 queens up. Ball off the profit, not the re-up. Fly like Puerto Rican Jesus. Uptown like I'm Baby Maine. Just caught a touchdown from the Bay.
It all revolves around drugs.
Now investigators believe Francisco Ortiz, charged with the shooting of 11-month-old Yazim Jenkins, supplied the AK-47 used in the murder of 2-year-old Nicolette Rivera. Guns, drugs, and babies caught in the crossfire. As you said, 2-year-old Nicolette Rivera is gone.
New developments in 2 weekend shootings that left a 2-year-old dead and an 11-month-old critically injured. Philadelphia police now say the suspects in both cases are now in custody. Live with the full story is Action News reporter Maggie Kent tonight. Maggie.
Rick, we're learning from sources that the alleged gunman who shot 2-year-old Nicolette Rivera confessed to police that he was actually aiming for someone who he believed was Rivera's father. Instead, he shot a contractor who was inside that home at the time. And as for the case of the 11-month-old that was shot on Saturday night, we're learning from sources that the suspect in that case was picked up in court today. He was there for unrelated charges. Acting Commissioner Christine Coulter addressing the men believed to be responsible for killing 2-year-old Nicolette Rivera, injuring her mother, and shooting a contractor in the stomach.
You went there with that intention. You fired 6 rounds from a high-powered rifle into a home that you knew to be occupied. So, I mean, I don't think you can spell out premeditated any more than, going there and doing that.
Now Tavon Thomas and Freddie Perez are facing murder, 9 counts of attempted murder, and conspiracy to commit murder charges. Investigators say the 2 were caught on camera in a shooting 8 minutes earlier. And that ballistic evidence matched the shooting on the 3300 block of North Water Street Sunday. Sources say Thomas confessed to mistaking a contractor cleaning carpets in the house for the girl's father.
At the end of the day, it was clearly a dispute between Nicolette's father and these folks.
This comes as the suspect in the shooting of 11-month-old Yazim Munir Jenkins has been taken into custody. The 11-month-old is in extremely critical condition after being shot 4 times while riding in his stepmother's car in Hunting Park Saturday. Sources say the wanted man appeared in court on an unrelated charge, and that's when he was taken in.
An 11-month-old Yazim Jenkins is fighting for his life. If he does pull through, that baby will never be the same.
Tonight, there was a vigil for the child that was shot 4 times, including once in his head. It happened back in 2019. He was only 11 months old at the time. Sadly, Yazim Jenkins has died. Action News reporter Annie McCormick live for us outside police headquarters with an update on this tragic story. Annie.
Yeah, and Gray, the medical examiner's office will perform an autopsy on little Yazim to see if he died as a result of his injuries from that 2019 shooting. Depending on the result, the alleged shooter could face upgraded charges of homicide. A vigil for 3-year-old Yazim Jenkins in West Philadelphia tonight. Yazim died yesterday after surviving a 2019 shooting.
Too many mothers' children are being ripped from their arms, and this needs to stop. This is a product of our environment.
The alleged shooter, Francisco Ortiz, is in jail awaiting multiple trials, including 2 unrelated cases, one for a gun charge and a domestic homicide case. Police say Yazim was shot 4 times while strapped into his car seat when his father took him on a drug deal. 2-year-old Nicolette Rivera was shot and killed in Kensington the day after Yazim. In a disturbing twist, Ortiz is believed to have supplied the AK-47 that killed Nicolette. Investigators said at the time the children's fathers were the intended targets.
Both of these cases are horrific demonstrations of how dangerous the drug trade is in the city of Philadelphia. Drugs and violence go hand in hand.
But Yasim appeared to have fought through the worst of his injuries. His mom said that he was now sitting up, and he never lost his smile and spirit. Erica Ledwell spoke on behalf of his mother's family tonight.
His endless fight. How many adults you know went through what he went through and survived? He was the most happiest baby you ever met in your life. He was joy.
And the suspected shooter, Ortiz, has a lengthy criminal history. In fact, the January prior to Yasim's shooting, he had just been released from prison after serving a 10-year sentence. We're now reporting live outside of police headquarters. Annie McCormick for Action News at 10 on PHL 17.
The other tragedy that comes out of both of these cases is that the parents of these two children, some of the parents of these two children, are responsible.
According to detectives, Ortiz pulled the trigger in a drug deal in a car on North 7th Street on Saturday with the father of infant Yasim Jenkins. Yasim was in the back seat. In the case of toddler Nicolette Rivera, police say Freddie Perez and Tavon Thomas were targeting her father over a fight for drug territory.
A child is a child. That baby belonged to somebody. So it's just not right.
In Nicolette's neighborhood, few wanted to talk on camera today, but recognized the community came together to give leads to the police.
At least somebody spoke up, because there's a lot of cold cases out here. But at least we got one down.
Just to provide an anonymous tip is of great value sometimes, because something like that can be a starting point. Just a nickname can be enough. Sometimes to get us moving in the right direction to get somebody that's extremely dangerous off the street.
And investigators tell us in this case, people came forward both anonymously and on the record to give those tips. Another common theme in all of this is that the three men who've been accused in these two separate shootings have lengthy criminal records. In fact, police tell us that Francisco Ortiz had served 10 years in prison, and while he's been out, he was arrested on a gun charge. In a gun case, he's been on parole for that charge. Oh, and by the way, last month, he was the prime suspect in a murder. He's expected to be charged with that murder in the very near future. Reporting live outside of police headquarters, I'm Rosemary Connors, NBC 10 News.
Each detail harder and harder to believe. Rosemary, thank you.
Not too long ago, somebody asked me what was the saddest episode of Mob Ties that I have ever done. And when they asked me about it, I had to really think about it. And at first, the first thing that came to my mind was the episode about Pierre Stokes in Chicago. But when I sat back and think about it, or thought about it, and think about it even now, I think about the episode with Darius Fields and the death of Siobhan Randall. Makes me think about episodes where females were targeted to get to males, like the case of Minnesota realtor Monique Ba, and the episode that we've done on London Wiggins. But if I have to say a case that make me sad, it's definitely most of the cases that surround children. And in this episode today is no different, as I feel like it ranks up there with one of the most tragic situations that we ever covered on this channel. And in this story, it's going to take us into a city that I would consider a hotbed for murder. And that's going to be the city of Philadelphia. And in this episode, we're going to be covering a guy by the name of Francisco Ortiz. And similar to episodes we have done in the past, Mr. Ortiz would have several co-stars, two of which being Tavon Thomas and Freddie Perez. And now that I think about it, one person that I just can't leave out is going to be the father of 3-year-old Yasim Jenkins, which is a man by the name of Nafez Monroe, a person that I wouldn't say is just as responsible as Francisco Ortiz for the death of his son, but I would even say more responsible than Francisco Ortiz. And living in a world where lost lives teach lessons, if y'all don't take nothing else from this, just know this is exactly how the game is played. Now, I won't take too much time on the exact crimes, but I will try to break them down into detail. Now, over the course of one weekend in Philadelphia in October of 2019, 2 children will be struck by gunfire, one being 11-month-old Yasim Jenkins, who would be hit 4 times but somehow miraculously survived, as well as the fatal shooting of 2-year-old Nicolette Rivera. Now, I took it upon myself to name Francisco Ortiz Avalanche due to the fact that I feel like when this finally goes to trial, a lot of that shit is gonna fall right back down on his lap. Because not only is he described to be the shooter of 11-month-old Yasim Jenkins and what police described as somewhat a botched drug deal where Yasim's father, Nafez Monroe, would attempt to pay Francisco Ortiz in counterfeit money. When Francisco Ortiz realized that situation, he would go on to fire into the car that Nafez Monroe had been riding in, most likely unaware that Nafez had an 11-month-old baby in the back seat of that vehicle. To make matters worse, that very same weekend, he would be linked to the murder of Nicolette Rivera by the AK-47 used in the killing. Shit kind of remind me when I was young and the OGs would say shit like, know what you getting into. But that's the tricky thing about the streets. Sometimes you don't know what you're getting into. Key example being Francisco Ortiz, because just following pretty much the code of the streets to where if somebody take your drugs off, you're supposed to protect it. He ended up involved in the murder of a 3-year-old. And though the death of Nicolette Rivera has different circumstances, it's all too similar to me as far as following the street code, in an act that police would describe as a drug turf war, either trying to expand on their turf or protect their turf. 25-year-old Tavon Thomas and 30-year-old Freddie Perez attempting to hunt down the father of Nicolette Rivera, who was presumably in the game, would end up firing 6 shots from an AK into a residence. And even though it's a part of the game, like I said, Francisco Ortiz was trying to protect his drug operation from somebody that was running off on him. And Tavon Thomas and Freddie Perez was just trying to protect or expand their drug territory. But they both had the same problem and messed up because they couldn't see their target. And we know all too well that we in the day of, they'll shoot your house up whether they know if you're inside or not. I would be lying if I didn't say it make me miss the days of where they would sit outside and wait for you. But fair, foul, or indifferent, it's the game. Y'all make sure y'all hit the red subscribe button right under this video and that bell so y'all know when this real Trill Spill shit is dropping. Y'all get in the comment box. Y'all let me know y'all take on all of this shit. Could anything have been done differently? How much time is Francisco Ortiz gonna get, or is he gonna have to pay for his life for causing the death of 2 toddlers in the course of one weekend? Y'all make sure y'all tap in with me on Instagram, Twitter, POP_A_LOT. We gonna be back with some more real Trill Spill shit ASAP. We definitely want to send our condolences to the family of Yasim Jenkins as well as Nicolette Rivera. Until next time, salute to the almighty mob.